I'm not a magician. Taxes may be inevitable, but the hard truth about Italian taxes is that somehow a lot of homeowners do not fully understand what's in it for them. Purchasing and owning a property in Italy, generally speaking, a dream of many, okay, and one too, involves a very long list, a collection of taxes and fees. Some clear, some are hidden. So let's try together to make a summary, a recap of the real cost of buying and maintaining a property in Italy, including the registration tax, one-off, the VAT, the IVA, the IMU, the Italian property tax, the garbage tax, and the notary fees and the realtor fees. So let's start with the registration tax, the imposta di registro. The registration tax really flows depending on whether the property is a primary residence or a second home, with the beneficio prima casa or not. If it's a primary residence, it's 2% of the cadastral value. And as you know, the cadastral value is not the market value, what you're paying for, is a government-determined value, often lower than the market price. If it's a second home, it's a 9% of the cadastral value. The beneficio prima casa does not come free of charge. You have to move there and make that as your main residency within 18 months from the purchase date. So let's go with an example. Let's say for a cadastral value of 150,000, the registration tax could be 3,000 for primary residence or 13,500 as a second home, 9%. Now, the VAT, the imposta sul valore aggiunto. The VAT applies if you buy from a building company rather than a private seller. And the rates are 4% for primary residence, for prima casa, 10% for second home, and 22% for luxury properties classified in A1, A8, and A9. For, once again, in the real case scenario, for a property sold by a developer, by a building company for 200,000, the primary residence will cost you another 8,000 for the VAT, for the IVA, or if it's a second home, another 20,000, the 10%. Now, what about the professional that is going to help you out with the parcella del notaio, the notary fees? Notary fees are mandatory, and typically they range between 1 to 2% of the property's declared value. They oversee the legal transfer, okay? Somehow they guarantee that everything is compliant with the law. And of course, they can guarantee the ownership and the registration. So for example, a property price 300,000, feel free to expect notary fees between 3,000 to 6,000. What are then the additional purchase costs? Well, there are always hidden costs. Stamp duties, usually, a few hundred euros, imposta di bollo. The mortgage tax, if you go with a mortgage, if you ask for the mortgage, wait to pay something like 0.25% for primary residence to around 2% for second home. And then, of course, the realtor. Agency fees. The real estate agent commissions can range between 2 to 4% of the sale price plus VAT if they're not under the regime forfettario. Okay, now let's move. You bought the property, you're happy, okay? It's the best day of your life. Now, what are the ongoing costs of owning a property here in Italy? Let's start with the IMU, Imposta Municipale Unica. IMU is the local municipal property tax that weighs on second homes, mainly luxury properties and properties that are not your primary residence. And rates typically range from 0.4 to 1.14% of the cadastral value. So for example, for a second home with a cadastral value of 100,000 and a 0.76% IMU rate, the annual tax due is 760. Remember, the IMU is due for the current fiscal year, and it's not something you can comply with by filing your taxes. It's a different obligation. Then the garbage tax. The TARI, the garbage tax, covers waste management and other services based on the property size and household and number of people that use the property. And the annual cost may range from 100 to 400. That's the average. So for example, a family of 4 in a 120 square meter home may pay around 300, 400 per year. Now, what are the maintenance costs, like ongoing costs that are something like condominium fees, if you live in a condominium, home insurance, maintenance, and these can range from 1,000 to 5,000 on the yearly basis, depending, of course, on the size and location. Now, what happens if you have a property, just because we don't want to leave anything on the table left behind, the wealth tax on foreign properties? Well, if you own a property abroad, do not forget about this. The EVA applies more or less at the same rate of 1.06% on the property value. So, stating all this, what are the hidden unsung costs that we almost forgot about? Well, legal and translation fees. Foreign buyers often require legal assistance and translation services, and these costs, of course, they're optional, between 2,000 to 5,000, and by the way, they're highly recommended. Cadastral updates. Very old properties may require cadastral updates to reflect, the real look of the property, renovation or extensions, why not? And these updates can cost you several €100. And don't forget about the timing. They may take a lot to update their records. Then, of course, there's a high risk for you to play with, the currency exchange fees. Those who are not in the euro region should account for currency exchange fees and fluctuations when transferring funds on property purchases. And then, of course, the last one, I always put myself last, tax compliance for non-residents. Non-residents earning rental income must comply with Italian tax regulations. Even though you're not an Italian tax resident, if you're making money out of your Italian property, you have to declare that. So in that case, you might need the services of a tax advisors. And fees professionals, international tax professionals, can range from 1,000 to 3,000 per year. So let's break it down in a very real case scenario. John, US citizen, buys a second home in Tuscany, 250,000. That's the price. Let's face purchase cost. Registration tax, 9%, is 22,500. Then we have the notary fees, a very good deal, 1.5%, another 3,750. Then we have the agency fees, 3% plus 22% Viva, the average one. It's another 9,150. So the total of cost, registration, whatever, is 35,400. So for a property that was listed for 250, there is a plus of 35,400 to be paid. Then what are the ongoing costs? The IMU, let's assume that is the 0.76% of a 100,000 gross value, 760. Tari, the garbage tax, rounded up to 150. The insurance, the maintenance, another 2,000. So the total of the cost per year to maintain this property are around 3,000. And of course, John has to know everything before committing to the deposit and to drop an offer to the realtor. So, what are my thoughts? Owning a property in Italy is like a dream come true, as we said, a very rewarding experience, but it comes with fiscal and financial responsibilities beyond the purchase price. From visible costs like registration tax and the VAT to very hidden ones like a maintenance and compliance fees, understanding the full picture can really make the difference for you to make the purchase or not. Or even more, it helps you compare different options. Even more important, if you're willing to invest in Italy and get money out of this property. There's also the income taxes, 23 to 43%, or a flat 26% if you want. There are possible, managing fees and bills to be paid. So the big question for you is, how can you make sure that actually you're not losing money at the end? I love proper planning and legal planning. So a realtor, a lawyer, why not, a tax expert, can lend a hand so you can enjoy your big purchase, your Italian dream, without financial stress. Whether you're buying a villa, okay, in Tuscany, or simply a cozy apartment in Rome, just do the math. Speak my language and trust numbers only. They never lie.